a subcommittee, unfortunately. I know it's quite a divisive issue. The town council in Newbury did a survey and the majority of people wanted it to be pedestrianised, but the council spoke to businesses and a lot of the businesses didn't want it to be pedestrianised permanently. So there's been, you know, different views on it. But our group thought it would be good to pedestrianise it because it helps people to socially distance, and it helps the shoppers. And if people want to sit out on the pavement in the evening, have a meal, have a drink or whatever, it's obviously much nicer to do that if you haven't got traffic going through. But anyway, the street is now reopened in the mornings and the evenings, and that is going to be the situation now. I don't think that's going to change. The council also voted to allow the public to go to virtual meetings. So this is something we argued for right from the end of April. And they have now decided that there is the technology available for the public to attend council and executive. So if members of the public have a question, they don't have to just receive a written answer now. They can attend the virtual meeting and they can receive the answer to their question and they can ask a supplementary. And that is quite a fundamental thing because for the last few months, people have not been able to ask a supplementary. All they can do is submit one question and get a written answer and they have no comeback. They can't ask the cabinet member for any more detailed information. They just have to take the written answer and be happy with it. So we're pleased that they have eventually learned how it really works and that members of the public can actually come and attend those meetings. I can see Andrew's hand.
Will that now apply to all the council roster of meetings, so things like health and well-being as well? I
believe so, yes.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're basically they're going to use that meeting room facility. So you have like an attendance room. So members of the public who aren't on the committee will be brought in at their point on the agenda to participate, and then they'll be sent out again effectively. Yeah.
Can I ask a quiz question? Yeah, around the electric charging. There's on the thing, but can we get any charging stations in the village?
We can try. Yeah, I mean, we've had quite a ding-dong over EV charging points in central Newbury because some of them are on...
Yeah, I know. I read some stuff over it.
And that goes on and on. I mean, I'll be dead before that's resolved, quite frankly. You know, it's a simple case of make the parking space be only or move the charging points. I think a child could understand that. But for some reason, they're dragging their feet. But I can certainly ask about EV in the village.
Well, no, it's like the amount of houses that don't have parking spaces. There's no way people are going to have electric cars in this village. But if you had some points around the village that you could use, then people would actually consider it for their cars.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just an idea that, you know, if we can have a couple around the village, that would be great.
Sure. What do other people think about that?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, if you bear in mind they're going to phase out all diesel and petrol cars by a certain date, you know, we should be thinking forward in terms of when we get to that date. Currently, they're likely to be electric. In the future, it might be hydrogen powered. Yeah. But for a period of time of probably 10 or 15 years, you probably need something. And there's probably, I'd imagine, potential grants available for this sort of thing.
Must be money there.
Fen, the other thing it might help with our CIL money, or sorry, 106 money, although it's going back to CIL now. Yeah, because you never know, that might be the kind of thing that we could look at. Mike, you've got your hand up, sorry.
Oh, my only concern around that at the moment would be is that does there need to be fundamental electrical infrastructure change in order to facilitate these? Because some of these chargers are like 200 kilowatt, 350 kilowatt or whatever, and would the you know, we don't have a lot of street lighting and stuff and things like this. There's not a lot, I don't think, of like municipal run electricity in the village. So I think we probably need some sort of survey to work out where we could put them and what would be the sensible approach, because it could be digging up roads. But if we know it in advance, obviously, as you say, Andrew, as we start to adopt, and you know, I'm considering going to one electric vehicle out of 2 cars, etc. As we start to adopt them, we're going to need to do that anyway. So it'd be good to understand from a
Well, also
concept.
the village car share model, you know, when it was sort of looked at 10 years ago, didn't have a great deal of, you know, enthusiasm. But I think with things changing and equally the cost of electric vehicles, if you you know had a village electric vehicle that could be, you know, rented by people, it might persuade one or two folk, you know, that maybe they could give their car up because there is one available if they need one.
It's true.
I think the other thing as well that lots of sort of forward-thinking areas have done is, you know, local solar generating organizations in villages and things. And of course, if you can tie something like that up, you can potentially even make your own juice to supply EV stuff locally. I mean, whether or not it's even practical, I don't know. But you know, maybe when we come into the housing needs stuff, you never know. You know, we might find an area along the A34 that, you know, could be suitable, or another area where it wouldn't blight the view or anything like that, but might provide something useful for the village.
Yeah.
And I know it's something lots of places are looking into.
Yeah, it'd be good to understand that as to what's possible now, like you say, and what infrastructure changes would be needed in order to add more than two or whatever. You know, let's kind of work out what we can do and when we can do it. Be good.
I'll make some inquiries about whether other villages have done this, because that might help us to understand how they've managed to do it.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah, I'm
Caroline.
happy to do that. I'll make some inquiries about it.
Thanks, Caroline. Over to you again. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. There has been an issue in West Ilsley. There's a guy who wanted to put up solar panels and the council wouldn't allow him. So he's actually appealed to the Secretary of State now. So I've said that I'll make a representation on his behalf as well, because he's quite upset that he hasn't been able to put them up, because he wants to do his bit and create some more sustainable energy. So it'd be interesting to see whether or not he wins that case.
Yeah.
I'm aware there is a project coming up about home insulation, because that's obviously another way to try and reduce your carbon footprint. And there is a lady from West Berkshire Climate Action Network who's going to forward me some information about that. She wants to go out around local villages and try and get people interested in signing up for that. I think it's some kind of grant scheme.
Yeah, there's a grant the government announced up to 2/3 if you go from potentially oil to a more ecological sort of air heat pumps or ground pumps or stuff like that. Also, if you change your glazing from single to double or double to triple, and I think the only caveat seems to be that you can't use it for replacement, and it's up to £5,000 as part of your 2/3. And if you're on benefits, I think you can get up to 10,000. So, yeah, I think for everyone in the village, it's probably worth hearing what's on offer. And I think it goes up for grabs after September the 30th.
Okay, maybe that's the same thing then that she was talking about.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Good. I reported the 30-mile-an-hour sign up near the A34 that got hit or bent or whatever, or other people will have reported it as well, but it seems like that has been fixed now.
Thank you.
And what else has happened? Planning white paper, somebody mentioned, I think before the meeting started. We've gone through that in great detail at the council. We've had several meetings, and the council meeting last week approved our official response to the consultation. So that will go off by the deadline. We are really concerned about a lot of the proposals in there. There's not much meat on the bones in terms of detail. We're concerned about what Andrew mentioned, the SIL and the Section 106 charges, because they're proposing that in the future we wouldn't get any funds until a new estate had been entirely occupied. And the problem with that is if you have a development that's done in phases, you would normally get some monies coming through, but you might have to wait longer in future. And also it's dictated by the value of the houses when they're sold. So if you suddenly had a market crash and the value of those houses went down, you would get less SIL money. Yeah. So that's another thing that we're really concerned about.
But this is out for consultation at the moment, isn't it? It isn't
yes.
a finalised thing.
Yeah.
So it's worth people responding. I think there's a link in the papers that are attached for response. Yeah, I was a bit concerned. There's sort of big areas of major changes, not much detail, and lots of proposals. So let's see.
Basically want to zone the whole district, so it would be areas for growth where you would basically get permission automatically as long as you tick certain boxes, and then an area for renewal, which is slightly different, and then an area of protection. So we think a lot of the of West Berkshire would fall under protection because it's AONB. But the idea is that they will come up with some kind of design standards for those 3 different zones. And as long as you meet those standards, you would get permission. We think it's going to undermine the ability of councillors to call in applications. So you might find a situation where there's a new local plan, there are various design codes, developer Joe Bloggs comes along, ticks various boxes, he automatically gets planning permission. And you guys and other villagers might come to me and say, well, hold on a minute, we're not very happy with this. And I'm going to have to say, sorry, it's too late, we can't do anything. So it's slightly changing the way things are done. And the local plan, which is redeveloped every few years, the idea is that they want more emphasis to be put on the development of the local plan and getting more members of the public involved in developing that plan. So they're sort of front loading the whole process rather than waiting for an application you don't like and you complain about it, as currently happens. You're sort of front loading the process. You have to decide in your local plan what you want. And once you've decided it, as long as people tick the boxes, it's going to be a lot easier for them to get planning permission. And one of our concerns is, how do you excite the public about getting involved in developing a local plan? You know, if you know someone's going to build a tower block on your front lawn, then you get excited about it and you want to challenge it. But if you say to them, oh, we've got this local plan, do you want to get involved? 99% of people are probably going to say, no, not really, I've got better things to do. So I think it's going to be a challenge for councillors to actually get people involved in that process and try and get them excited about it. But anyway, that's all to be decided. The consultation deadline is October. I can't remember if it's, I think it's the end of October. But all parish clerks have been sent the council's response, and I would encourage people to have a look at it and put in their own stuff. Stephen.
Well, yeah, talking about planning, I don't know whether it's on the agenda later, but the Compton development, are we talking about that later or not? No.
We might have to do it in AOB.
Yeah. It was a really quick one though. Or should we do it later?
We don't
Is it
have
specifically,
we can't
is it
have
specifically
AOB,
for me,
so-
Stephen? Because I'm not
Okay.
staying till the end.
Okay, so yeah,
Yeah, for you. So I've been talking to some mates in Compton, and I realised about 18 months ago, some people in Compton were digging up their garden and found a load of barrels buried in their garden, and it was radioactive waste, and they got them guys out in hazmat suits and took it all away. So I'm like, you know, there's going to be a record of all this kind of stuff. I'm quite concerned about it.
Well, we actually put in our submission, didn't we, that there was some radioactive sheep remains or something,
that's
and
right.
that highlighted
Yeah,
one of the
it's
environmental
just
surveys.
They have
Yeah.
barrels of waste buried in their garden.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is ridiculous. I mean, it's the polluter pays principle. These people should have been charged to clean up the mess rather than pass that charge on to the taxpayer. Because basically, this is why the developer wants 250 houses rather than 140, because of the cost of having to clean up the site first. So, you know, it's the local population that are going to have to pay the price, basically, because these companies are allowed to get away with it.
Yeah, but the government are at fault because they're the ones that own the site.
But they're no longer responsible for anything.
Oh, yeah, well, exactly. We can break the rules. I've got 8 people in my house.
Only in a limited way, Steve, I think you'll find.
But no, I mean, this will all get debated when we go to planning committee as well. I mean, I've got no sense at the moment about what the likelihood is of this going through, to be honest. You know, sometimes you get a bit of a sense of how things might go, but with this one, I don't know.
And Fen, before Caroline goes, and on that same kind of slight track, our transport consultancy folks, is there any update briefly on that so Caroline can hear it as well?
No, I spoke to Charlotte, who was consulting with the highway specialist and drafting a report. But obviously they are aware that there is no date for committee yet. So they're not busting a gut to get something written until it starts to go to the committees. But She did say I'd have a statement for today, but unfortunately I haven't.
Okay, but I guess if you do get something in the next few days, we can distribute it round and also let Caroline have a copy.
Yep.
Great, thank you. And you know about the roadworks on the A34, because everyone had one of these letters, yeah?
Yeah.
I did have a word with Highways England about a week ago, and their comms person was supposed to be ringing me back to tell me how they work out who to send letters to. Apparently they've got some sort of zoning system, so depending on what work they're doing, they decide who to send a letter to. So with this, for example, people in Hermitage weren't told about it. So I shared the letter on Facebook with them. I mean, it's not even my ward, but I just try and use my comments about who might actually be driving through here to get onto the A34. But yeah, they're supposed to be letting me know. And to be quite honest, I think they do a reasonable job when you bear in mind the council doesn't even deliver letters to people anymore about planning applications right on their doorstep. And if they're, you know, somebody who hasn't got a computer, they don't even know about it. So the fact that these guys write letters is quite good, really, I think.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that the white paper probably needs chucking in, is that there should be some contribution from the developers to ensure that local people do at least get told they're getting the tower block next to them, even though it'll be too late for them to object to it.
Yeah, I mean, the paper, it reeks of Dominic Cummings, to be honest. Every page talks about data and digital.
Is it in Braille?
Sorry?
Is it in Braille? Is the eyesight?
Yeah, no, you have to go to Northumberland to find out.
But yeah, I mean, it does worry me, because a lot of the people who complain to me about planning applications are elderly folk with no computer. They might have a mobile, but it's not a smartphone. You know, if they don't go for a walk past where the orange notice is and they don't read the Newbury Weekly News, they aren't going to know about the planning application. So, you know, it's a bit of a sort of Heath Robinson way of going about it, but I think you need to deliver letters to people around a particular planning application.
You know, we talked about this when they stopped it, and when some of the things with Dyson came through that said, you know, on a development it's going to cost, you know, potentially hundreds of thousands. It's not really a big ask to say, can you get the developer to pay for 60 letters to go round or something like that? So it seems obvious. And also, if we mention digital exclusion, which is key to lots of all the sort of government projects, there's another reason for putting something in about, you know, contributions towards ensuring that, you know, the local population are informed, because you're not going to get people to engage if they don't know what they're engaging about or why they should or shouldn't. And, you know, I'm sure if you basically tell everybody over a certain age, you're basically going to be cut out of this unless you're digitally numerate.
And they want more focus on the local plan, but if they're going to do that digitally, that automatically disenfranchises everyone who hasn't got a computer or a smartphone.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Maybe they're going to buy everybody one.
Yeah.
From China. Yeah.
So I think that is it. I mentioned to Fen earlier that there's a fence at the allotment. I don't know if the post is rotten or someone's hit it or something. But just as you go into the allotments on the left, it's sort of falling over.
Can go in on risk assessment later.
Yeah. I think that's it from me.
Thank you.
I'll stay a little bit longer, but then I'll disappear at some point.
Anyone got any questions from the council for Caroline? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Next item. We appear to have two number 6s, so we'll go to number 6, part 1. Over to Jeff for the presentation re Manor Oak Homes and the housing survey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Fen said she'd circulated the email which I provided as an overview. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the minutes pack. Just click on the hyperlink and you'll see Jeff's email.
So, in which case, I'll just cover it all very briefly. My client Manor Oak Homes have an option on the site in question. I presume you all know which site it is we're referring to. One with access onto Fiddler's Lane.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a previous attempt at a planning application which didn't go very well, so we'll draw a line under that and move on. But as part of that discussion, my client, William Main, attended some of your parish council meetings, and there was feedback directly to him to say that could he consider this site as an affordable site, an exception site as they're called.
Yep.
And he agreed to do that. I think he had some meetings with Fen. I came and had a couple of meetings with Fen as well. And as a result of that, we surveyed the whole of the village. And thank you again, Fen, for helping to organise that. We got 78 returns, and out of that, there was an identified need of 8 new dwellings in different formats, in flats, apartments, houses, shared ownership, rent, private purchase. So that identified a need for 8 dwellings. We have reflected upon that, and we've spoken to the landowner, and we're happy to bring forward a scheme of circa 8 houses and flats to meet this particular need going forward. I haven't got a scheme with me. I wanted to just sort of introduce myself and say hello tonight, and if that is the general consensus of the council, we will then start to draw up some schemes, and we'll share them with you, and obviously the district council as well, to hopefully agree on a way forward. And when we're in that, we have got a level of agreement, we would then prepare a planning application and do some more public consultation with all of the people living in the village.
So Jeff, could I just quickly, just because obviously we haven't done one of these before, so you know we need to sort of get as much clarity as we possibly can.
Sure.
So if we're sort of saying, you know, that we'd potentially be looking at something like 8.
In that order, yes.
In that order, are we looking at 8 in the sort of size and amount you've talked about in your response? So we're unlikely to find 8 6-bedroom houses all of a sudden, you know, on the plan or something, having thought we were doing something completely different.
No, for this to be an exception site, a site to meet the needs of a village, in this instance a village, we have to respond to the specific needs which are arising from the survey.
Okay, so we have that as a sort of reassurance.
Absolutely, yes.
Factor.
We will obviously have to discuss with the council's housing department to see what their views are. I mean, they ultimately manage the housing needs across the borough, so there would have to be discussion with them, and we would have to speak to a housing association to take over ultimately the management of it. Now, 8 is a fairly low number for a housing association to get involved in, so we would have to go and speak to whichever housing associations that the council would want to use in this area, and we'd speak to them about how they would want to manage the stock.
I think the other option we'd also like you to have a think about, which we've talked about as a council over the years, is whether there's any sort of way forward where we might even end up with a sort of East Ilsley Housing Association.
Okay.
Because one of the things that's really caused some consternation in the past is that when the limited amount of affordable houses has been put in the village, and villages have been put forward because of various national constraints and what have you, all of a sudden none of the local folk get it, and you end up with people from Southampton or further afield. Now, you know, while everybody and housing needs really important, you know, the whole point of even looking at this is to try and get a sort of working housing model for people who live here, who their families, you know, grow up here, and that we've got some sort of circular, cyclical thing that will work as people move up and down. I think that's what everyone had in mind, and of course, you know, it would seem crazy to do that and then just hand control over to, you know, a housing association. It might get bought by another housing association, will end up being owned by the Australians or something, who really won't give too much of a darn whether it's local people or not. So I think if we can just get across that to you guys, because you're obviously au fait with all this, that there's a real feel that some kind of, if we do go down this sort of avenue, that we do have some elements of control, and it might be something as novel as, you know, the East Ilsley Housing Association or something, because then we'd probably have a better way of controlling
Okay.
what happens in the future. So, it probably doesn't happen very often, but it is something we're sort of vaguely interested in, I think. Over to anybody else for any questions for Jeff?
Well, no, I'm with you, Andrew, on this 100%. I think that if we can have our own East Ilsley Housing Association, then for me, that ticks all the boxes, because the whole point of having development in the village, I recognise the need for housing, but we have to have a split between affordable and normal housing. And the normal kids in the village, there's no way they can buy houses in East Ilsley when I think I saw a stat 30 years ago, the average age someone buying houses when they were 23. And that's never going to happen now. But, if we can have housing that is developed and it's owned by the village or part owned, then at least we're giving these guys an option. So, I'm 100% on this.
Okay, I'll take that away. I think the only thing I would say on that is clearly the value my client gets out of this, which is obviously considerably less than if it would be an open market scheme, is that someone still pays for the property. So in other words, the housing association would pay for the houses.
Yep.
They would then run them.
Yep.
And as a going concern, they would obviously make some money from them, but they'd also maintain them as a charity going forward.
Yeah. So
someone has got to pay for these houses as part of the scheme. Now, I don't know whether you have any funds which you can use to effectively step in and acquire the properties, or whether you take a part ownership or you take a management role along with the housing association. We're happy to consider all of those, but I don't know whether you have the funds to outright buy the land and ultimately the houses, and then effectively.
And what kind of figure would we be looking at, Jeff, roughly, just so as we've got a ballpark figure?
I haven't got that. I mean,
Okay.
I can provide that for you. So
that would be a useful steer, because have we got that lying in our bank accounts at the moment? Absolutely not. But there are all sorts of rural housing initiatives, grants, and Lord knows what else that are really trying to encourage this sort of thing. And I just think it's something we should certainly have a really good look at. And who knows? Yeah, maybe we might partner with a favourable housing association or something like that. Let's kind of see. I think we've got to consider all options. Fen, you've got a question?
I have. I'm just looking through the most up-to-date list of powers and duties of parish and community councils, and there isn't a power to provide affordable housing or form an association that would allow people to live, the sort of shared ownership, 50-50, 75-25. So obviously we know that we are allowed, providing a bid is accepted, to purchase assets. The management of this association would be a very complex issue. We'd need legal advice on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is getting to the bounds of how you do this, and you may end up having to, reconstitute something else, or, get a trust fund potentially involved, or that. I think nothing like this is ever going to be straightforward, but I don't think that's a reason to not consider it. And also, we're not saying necessarily the parish council will run it day to day, but it might be a vehicle set up under parish council auspices that could.
We could possibly use general power of competence, but the issue would be if you were to lose that status, how that is continued.
Well, I wonder whether, again, if you can set up some sort of third party, not-for-profit, local charitable housing association based here.
Yeah, possibly we'd have to have we might have to set up a company.
Yeah.
That's another workaround.
Yeah, because you can have not-for-profit trading companies.
You can, but that's all under the general power of competence, which obviously we don't have yet.
But we will have.
Yes, next year.
And then we can build the casino on the lake, on the pond rather. It could be Las Vegas in Berkshire. It worked for the Native Americans, so who knows?
Okay. I mean, if there's no more questions, that's. Oh, sorry, Mike's got a question.
Sorry, Jeff. Yeah, I'm just interested in. Let's assume that we don't pursue that as a parish council, and we don't become the governing body or the we don't become the landlords, so to speak. I'd really like to understand whether there are any bodies locally, housing bodies that is, that would consider private rent, local authority subsidised rental, as well as private purchase. I know some of the London housing associations, because I have direct experience with those, working with the companies that do have that diversity, but it would be good to understand who or what would be involved in that, because it's I just think that's something that probably needs clearing up as well. And I don't really understand the difference between local authority rent and private landlord rent. Either a property is rental or it's not. Is that whether they, in your experience, whether they would take local authority subsidised tenants?
I think for local authority, you read housing association. I think they are the same these days. So there will be a list. Local authorities have a housing list, and on that list there will be people looking for different types of properties, and then it's down to the housing associations to deliver the properties to meet that need. And that would be effectively a local authority rent or a housing association rent. A private rent is when someone decides to rent out their house.
No, I understand the terms. It's just it's difficult for me to differentiate between those two.
Right.
The ownership element.
Okay.
They're still flats or houses for rent, aren't they? At the end of the day,
yes, correct.
For purchase or shared ownership, which are the other options. So it would be good to sort of understand and clear that up. But also as well is that I think if we don't go down the route of managing it ourselves as the parish council or a limited company under the parish council, then I understand that the way that the needs registers work at housing associations is that they do prioritise the people in most need of the property rather than the people who are most local to the property, or actually doing what this survey is servicing the needs of the people that live and work in the village. So it is counterintuitive in the way that they kind of allocate property.
Mike, we did some work up at the Gallops with English Rural Housing, and they used our local knowledge and local campaigning and actually secured a house for a villager. And they closed applications from outside of the area because we had such strong connections with the community. And they really appreciated our help with that. But English Rural Housing were really keen to work with us and ensure a villager got the place, which they did.
Okay. So it would be good to understand then whether there would be any contracted terms and conditions that we could impose on the governing body associated with them to say that we would have first refusal, or obviously I understand with rental properties it would be continued rent and income source and all that kind of stuff. Can't be disruptive in any way, but it'd be good to understand the kind of how that would work.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, I think all these are very valid points, and we need to go away and do some more investigation and discussion with the district council and understand how many housing associations are interested in getting involved in such a small scheme, on what basis, how do we ensure that the properties are made available for people living in the village as well. So I'd like to go away and do all of that work and produce a little sketch scheme to show how we might want to develop the site, and then come back to you and sort of go through it all again and see if you are happy with the proposal at that particular point. Because at the moment, I think it's just an in principle proposal. We need to put a lot of the meat on the bones to get to a scheme which we can then present back to you for your sign off, hopefully.
Indeed. And I also, as well, just to add again, Jeff, I think that Andrew's suggestion that understanding of the prices associated with this and a kind of a rough order of magnitude, because there may indeed be a consortium of investors within the village that might consider the purchase of those properties, and then allow the parish council to administrate that, which might be an option as well. So
yeah. I mean, to be honest, that might be a better way of doing it, because it ensures that the properties they're now managed and managed for local people, which this is all about. And a housing association doesn't come in and just run it in a slightly remote manner. But lots of things sound good, often
Yeah.
difficult to make work. But I
Yeah.
understand exactly what you're saying, and we'll go in.
Thanks, Jeff.
Any other questions for Jeff before he pops off? No.
No.
No, none for me.
Jeff, thank you very, very much, and thanks for the survey and the work so far, and let's keep in touch.
Absolutely, I'll be in touch. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
Right, item 7, to review the planning white paper proposal and provide feedback and comment for consultation.
Having heard Caroline's comments, and the fact that West Berks have put such strong sort of arguments together, it's a tough call as to whether or not we want to put our own personal one in. I have had notification from BAUC and NAUC that they would like to hear from parish councils, but are aware that unitary councils and district councils are also putting in their own consultations. So it's up to you how you want to play this.
I'm sort of the opinion that we probably should, even if it's very brief and, you know, and within the restrictions of the knowledge we've got, because even things like, you know, things that really matter, planning applications where letters don't get sent. So if, you know, if the only contribution we ever made to it was, you know, that the developers of places get charged with actually ensuring that a letter goes round to all the residents affected, I'd consider that a massive victory. And yet, you know, in the great scheme of ripping up planning legislation that's been around for, you know, 73 years, it's not a big ask, but it would probably be quite positive for everybody. So we could certainly do that. We could object to the SIL payments being done at the end of developments for obvious reasons, because in a village like ours and similar villages, if they stick up X number of homes in Compton, where the infrastructure is affected as people are moved into the houses as they build them in phases, you know, the village, the town, the wherever gets none of the benefit of the SIL money until the very last one has gone. You know, I mean, it does tend to somewhat turn this from, you know, possibly there being too much sort of control in terms of development from people living or neighbours or things like this, to utterly opening the gates to, you know, developers do what you will. And there's probably a sensible middle ground.
Actually, Andrew, I was going to ask about the SIL money. So the houses in Compton, do we get any SIL money from them or not?
I'm not sure we do. Fen, you might need to check that.
I don't think we will, because technically we're not in their boundary. It would all go to Compton.
Yeah. I mean,
we are only
that
being
might
asked
be a consultation suggestion that places massively affected by development should get some of the contribution.
Because from my perspective, I actually think that East Ilsley would be more affected by the housing development in Compton than Compton itself.
Yeah,
possibly. Because it's the you know, cars and the car trips. Every single day they're going to come through our village, rather than, yeah, they're going to start in Compton, but they're going to come through here, in and out every day.
Yeah,
So
but there'll be in theory there would be people in Compton who wouldn't see any change Monday to Friday, because everybody would turn and go towards East Ilsley.
Exactly.
So if you're by the school or somewhere like that, you'd barely even notice, you know, anything had changed on a Monday to Friday basis, because all the traffic would be coming our way.
But that's not what SIL money's for.
No, I realise that.
So
but
the problem is you can't spend it on roads and pavements. It's for the people that are going to be living in this new development, and for the existing people that could potentially be disrupted by this development, in terms of they're not having the capacity for amenities. So Compton doors would be would struggle to cope with demand from another 250 houses on top of
Yeah.
the residents it already serves.
Yeah.
Still money would go towards perhaps expanding Compton Village stores or buying another property and making a bigger shop. That's what that money would be for. And legally, that's what they can spend it on.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll have to pay for our own toll gate booth.
That's a great idea.
I know it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we get these powers of competence, that's first on my list.
Yeah. Power to install a toll. Yeah, excellent.
And only for people coming from Compton, obviously.
Can I have a special pass, a badge in my
Oh, of
car?
course. Yeah, no, special dispensation, you get a flag.
No, then you have to drive to Beaton and then come the back way.
Righty-ho. Does anyone have any comments apart from that on the white paper? Is there anything else that people have seen that they think we should drop a note about? I mean, it's a fairly complex old thing, so yeah.
I must say, quite flippantly, I was a little bit worried that the Prime Minister in his foreword doesn't understand that we're going into the third decade of the 21st century, not the second. But
Yeah. Well, facts, Max.
What do you want me to do? Do you want me to respond to Bauk and Nauk with our feedback?
Can we, if we do some feedback, can we respond to everybody? Because I'd quite like East Ilsley to respond to Her Majesty's government. I think that'd be rather splendid.
Yeah.
Because that will obviously make the difference.
Okay, well, if I draft something and I'll circulate it to you all, and then we can spam it to all of the government officials and Laura Farris and
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Mouse That Roared.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
fabulous film. Okay, item 8, to discuss the proposed works on the pond, agree to a contractor and plan a schedule of works and receive an update. So I think at this stage it would be really great to both welcome and thank Nick, who's very kindly offered to take over the flood warden responsibilities and probably now becomes the most important person in the village because of this. So thank you, Nick. So
Pleasure.
should we go over to you now for a sort of an update, and then we can kick around the issues over the pond?
I think maybe, well, thank you for the welcome. I'm collecting all the wardenship around the village. In the hopes that when I get to 100, I get knighted, like
Yes.
Major Tom. No, Fen really is the person who has done most of the investigative work. And as I said to you in my report that I filed in readiness for this meeting, I really have had the handover from Steve Coleman, which was very effective. And Fen has very efficiently been holding meetings with potential contractors to work on the pond. I mean, clearly it is a major project. It needs to be done. It needs to be done from a flood prevention point of view, and it also just needs to be done from an aesthetics point of view. You know, the pond is a central part of the village. So maybe it's best if we just hand over to Fen, and she has got the quotes. I know she's already filed 2 of the quotes with the parish council. I'm not sure if we had a third one in yet, but I could see from those 2 quotes we were about £4,000, £3,000 short of the budget. So Fen, maybe you could bring us up to date.
Okay, thank you. So I was supposed to have. Oh, can you hear me? Okay, I'm getting feedback. Can you
I can hear you.
hear me? Okay. I had a meeting on Friday at 11 a.m. with the 3rd contractor recommended by West Berkshire Council. By 11:15, while I was Billy No Mates at the pond, I gave him a call and he wasn't coming. He didn't really explain why. He did say he'd try and get over to the village at the weekend and get a quote to me Monday so I could forward to you Tuesday. And that hasn't happened, nothing's come in, and I've had no further communication from him. So the only quotes we've currently got are the 2 from the 2 people we met a couple of Tuesdays ago. obviously our standing orders states that we should, for works of this magnitude, we should have 3 quotes. You know, a third quote has attempted to be sourced. You know, we have got the provision of the fact that this is something that needs to be done quite quickly on our side, that could we come to an agreement using the 2, seeing as the third didn't bother to turn up. So we have got that option, if we'd like. The first quote that came through, you all saw, we are currently looking at 20,549. And the second quote is coming in at, I know it looks better, 14,352, but we've got to factor in the clearing of the field. And obviously we've got machine and driver work at £350 a day, and then the muck to be taken away on £300 per lorry. But what they've done is they haven't given us a price, because he doesn't know how much he's going to take out of the pond, therefore how many lorries we're going to need and over how many days. So although 14,352 looks reasonable, I actually don't think that is going to be the final cost.
Yes. And we really don't know whether it's going to be 18,000, 25,000 or 32,000, depending on.
Exactly. Whereas TL Contracting, who've quoted 20,500, have quoted 11 loads at £359, so totaling 3,949, which is included in his cost of 20,549.
And Fem, was he the chap I met with you?
Yes, the first guy.
Yeah, because he seemed to sort of, he knew the pond, he knew the area. So, you know, if it hadn't been anything other than that, I would have at least vaguely had some faith that he knew what he was talking about. Yeah, so, I mean, from my perspective, I think, you know, we're really snookered on this, because, you know, this is why there was such a sustained campaign to try not to get West Berkshire Council to wash their hands of it, because, you know, the Highways Agency and West Berkshire Council contribute, you know, an enormous amount of pollution to this. And it does seem rather unfair that, you know, 400 villagers get stumped with the cost of sorting it out. And yet it's also a piece of flooding infrastructure that runs, you know, it's not just our flooding, it's, you know, it's west, it's further down, because it's part of a scheme. So, you know, I do sort of wonder whether there's any mechanism for going back to both West Berkshire Council, Thames Water, etc., 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 to see if we can get some help with this. Because one of my fears is, you know, if we were spending 20,000 knowing we're not going to have to do it again for another 30 years, you know, I wouldn't be worried. Not really. But, you know, this is the second or third time it's happened, I think, since I've been here. And I don't know how many times you've seen it done, Nick.
No, at least two times in the 20 years. And clearly it's a hell of a cost that the village has to bear when we aren't the main contributor to the pollution. And I don't know whether we could appeal to, as you say, West Berkshire Council or the Highways Agency, or even, you know, even the farming community. I wouldn't hold out much hope for that, but, you know, if we went to Maxted or Beeswax or somebody and said, look, guys, you are contributing to this, and the impact will not just affect East Ilsley, as we saw when we had the floods several years ago. The impact was pretty devastating, and one life was lost as a consequence, indirectly. So maybe we could tug on a few heartstrings, but I just can't understand why West Berkshire Council don't take some responsibility for this, because if they have to come and do some flood prevention work, they're going to incur a cost anyway.
Yeah. Who's next? Mike?
Ben.
I just wanted to give you a quick update on on the finances, first thing I've done is, because we're members of NAUC and HAUC and BOW and all of those organisations, we are allowed 1 hour's free legal consultancy. And I've had a couple of conversations with 2 people there, and quite a long chat on Thursday, a chap called Simon there, who has listened to our tales of woe, and is really quite keen on resolving some of this so that we can get some financial support from West Berks Highways England. He's putting together something for us, which could help us mobilise a partnership with others so we don't bear the full brunt of it. So that's pending. The other conversation I've had is with another Simon, and he is in charge of still money, back to still money again. And because this pond provides a level of flood alleviation, he thinks it's well within our limits of spending still money on it.
Right.
We have 4,500 earmarked in still at the moment. And Simon believes that it would be the best possible spend for the village to use this money to help us with our flood alleviation plans. So all I've got to do is write him a very quick proposal with what we'd like to use it for, and he's going to get the team to authorise it if we wanted to. But there is
Okay, sorry. Mike's next. Mike?
Sorry, Stephen. Yeah, it's kind of sort of along the lines of what Fen says. I don't know Nick or anybody else because I'm still relatively new to the village, only 3 years. But I'm led to believe that the reason that some of this removal of the is expensive and necessary is because of the toxic content in there. Has any analysis been done in the past to say that this is probably 50% farming and 50% from the road, or some sort of kind of a portion of blame in there? Or could that be something that we absolutely make sure that we do this time around? And then, you know, whether it's I don't think it's probably not wise to do something retrospectively, but if we could have some sort of analysis done that says, actually, we do think that, you know, the A34 is contributing to 30% of this problem. Therefore, we have a case, and then we can take the legal advice, as Fen has said, you know, to say, have we got a case to go to the council and kind of get some money to do that? And can we then go cap in hand to the farming community because we think they're 25% responsible or whatever? Is there anything like that happened in the past?
There was some testing done, but again, you know, without wishing, you know, comment on previous
the date 2006.
Yeah, previous folk.
Yeah.
We'd struggled to find bits and bobs. I think I remember it not being entirely disastrous, but there being quite a few nasties in there. But what really was pivotal was a previous chair effectively rolled over to West Berkshire Council because there'd always been this long-standing argument. This is one of the reasons we hadn't registered ownership of the pond, because Wantage District or Borough Council, there's a document that the History Society have got where they had to write to the council asking permission to plant trees at the pond. So it was always, well, it can't be our responsibility if we don't own it. It's never formally been registered with the land registry. And I'm afraid it was 10 odd years ago where there was this enthusiasm, I'm not sure where from, to, you know, effectively say to West Berkshire Council, no, we'll take responsibility for it. And sadly, they've said, no, absolutely, over to you. And I do think it's a dereliction of their duty. I agree with you, Mike. I think we need to do this testing again as a starting point. Let's see what's in there. And then with, you know, the help of things like the flood forum, with the help of NALC and what have you, I think we've got to very rapidly put some sort of case together, because, you know, if we're footing this entire bill, you know, realistically, the precept has to go up by 45-50% next year, and for every year following. and you know, we got a bit of stick for it going up, I don't know, 27p or whatever it did on the last bill. You know, you wait till you're sending around a £5,000 plus bill for pond depreciation. You know, I think it's, you know, I think it's really interesting that, you know, in terms of expenditure and liability for the village, you know, we have, apart from the councillors, we've got 2 members of the village here, and we're talking about increasing the precept by, you know, a third.
So from my perspective, the easiest solution from this, so what's in the pond is not dangerous at the moment, so we have to clear it. So we need to clear it, so we hire someone to clear it, and we dump it on land that the council owns. You know, there's no issue with the deposits in the pond at the moment. We have to clear it. So we'll clear it, we'll pay the fee, we'll put it on council land. Done. And it's cheap.
The problem is none of our land is near enough, and they're physically not allowed to transport dripping silt. It's illegal.
Well, no, it's by the allotments. We pay a bit by the allotments.
Yeah, but we can't get it to there without it going in a truck and then leaking round the one-way system all the way around the village.
Well, we hire a truck, so we hire someone to take it and dump it on our land.
Yeah, the process we've been told that you've got to do effectively, though, is you have to take what you take out of the pond, put it somewhere to dry it. Then when it's dry, you can then shift it wherever you want. So the process that was sort of heading in the right direction was that we stick it in a dumper truck, we take it down Hayden Road, and I think one of the farmers has agreed that it can sit there and then dry to then be taken wherever it's got to go. But you have to have that process. So your options are you take it out of the pond and you stick it at the side of the pond and let it dry. It's option 1. Option 2 is you take it down Hayden Road. And the good thing with that, and we probably have to talk to the folks at Hildersley, is you don't touch public highway.
Madness, isn't it?
Can I just point out that the first quote from TL Contracting, this £20,500, does include a soil test for £650.
Okay.
So prior to any work being undertaken, they will do a soil analysis for us, which will be more...
I wonder, Fen, whether we should be doing a soil some testing of the pond now, so as part of our project, because equally, you know, I haven't entirely ruled out, depending on the magnitude of, you know, what we're faced with creating an East Ilsley pond regeneration community group, applying to Greenham, and then we'll do that properly, and you know, any contribution from SIL or whatever can go through that, and see if Greenham can't pick up some of it, because, you know, I just don't. We're in this dilemma that we have to do it, and the village can't afford it.
It's absolute madness.
I think we need to wait until Houck come back to us with their legal standing, and whether or not we've got grounds.
Yeah, but I think even they would have their strength. Well, I think you need to ask the question, because we could equally throw ourselves a curveball, because without it being tested, we can make a very good case for saying all this pollution, you know, we can send them videos of the brown water coming down Fiddler's Lane, you know, in the torrent. We've got lots of videos of that, and down Church Hill and what have you. So if you send them video of that, it pretty much looks like the pond is filling up with stuff from the road. Once you've tested it, you've got absolute evidence of this or this, which may or may not, you know, play to the narrative we want it to. So, you know, on the downside, if it didn't contain nasties from the road. So I wonder whether, you know, we need to be very careful in terms of the order we do this in terms of appealing for help, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to round that off, Andrew, I think if we test, we'd have to pay whatever it is. If it is 650, like we've been quoted, we'd have to pay for it. If it then turns out to be our responsibility, we still need to pay for the testing because it needs to get tested. I would vote that, I would propose now that we do a test and then actually get that evidence and then use that to go to legal or whatever we need to do to try and get money from elsewhere to do it, because I mean it's a phenomenal amount of money, and as Nick has said, he's been here in the village 20 years and it's happened twice in his
Well, I
lifetime.
remember it twice, so
Yeah, so that's
I remember it twice.
So
and effectively we then have to reconstitute everything we do as a council and say every 5, 7, 8 years we're going to have a bill of 20 grand plus, and then it will accumulate as well. So the next bill would be 29, the one after that. And I don't think we can stomach. And it would be really interesting, of course, if we're faced with this and we decide to dissolve the parish council if everyone resigned, because West Berkshire Council would have to take on running the parish council with no funds in it.
we have to find then about £3,000 a year in order to maintain that.
Yeah.
What we're talking about.
And that's a considerable chunk of change on the precept of 13. Yeah. Nick, sorry.
Just a couple of thoughts. I agree with you. Maybe could we alleviate some of the cost by having a East Ilsley working party, maybe taking the reeds out, whatever. I really don't know. The toxicity of the pond. I mean, the fact there are endless goldfish in there and the ducks seem happily in there, one has to believe that it's not too toxic, because it does support a reasonable degree of wildlife. I can imagine the fight between the Highways Agency and the local farming community as to who contributes most to the diesel pollution or whatever. But are there any other organisations that we could appeal to, none of which I know at this stage, but countryside type organisations who may look to support our desire to actually turn the pond back to a point of natural beauty in the village? And are there any other villagers who are faced with similar situations from whom we could learn a lesson, or indeed discover what they've done in terms of finding funding? We can't be unique, I don't think, in having this problem. But I don't know of any other village that's got it. So could I ask, the Pangbourne people if they know of somebody, or do we know of other villages that have got a similar situation and how they found a resolve?
Who looks after West Ilsley's pond?
I was going to say
West
West Ilsley. Yeah, West Ilsley had theirs done some years ago, and they went through the same thing and had it all cleared out. So they might have still the information for that.
I can speak to Rollo. I've got his contact details.
Yeah, and I think Nalcombe, Balcombe, people like this are going to have to. We're going to have to make use of our membership.
Yeah.
Because this is the sort of thing they should be helping with.
There's a little village as well. Is it? I want to say it's one of the Hendreds. You know how?
Yeah,
Did
Hagbourne.
What wanted?
Hagbourne?
Yeah, they've got a little pond like in the middle with houses
That's
round it, and you drive past it.
Yeah, Hagbourne.
West Hagbourne.
Yeah, I might speak to the clerk there as well.
Yeah, I mean, what they haven't got though is enormous hills. Well, not enormous, but you know, the camber that we get down Fiddler's Lane. Anyone who's ever walked up there in a rainstorm, you know, you have got 1.5 feet, 2 feet of brown water raging down that, and it ends up in the pond. I mean, we could have concrete the pond over and build my casino.
Yeah,
that's another option.
That's an option.
Perhaps we should. Perhaps you should tell West Berkshire that's what we're going to do if they don't pay for the pond.
The trouble is, Andrew, the casino will get washed away.
That is true. Well, we could perhaps build it on stilts with you know, a life-size model of Venice underneath or something.
But
the canals of East Ilsley.
It just might be worth. I'm sure people have done it, and Fen will know. But But it might just be worth looking at some previous situations that have found a resolve to this situation. But, and the other thing is the timing. I mean, when do we want to get this done by?
I mean,
Yesterday.
that is a limiting factor, and I think because it's such a chunk of change, I don't want to go, well, regardless, we've got to get it done. I think that would be verging on the irresponsible from my perspective, because I know we'd be saddling the village with 3 or 4 grand extra precept every year forever. Whereas with a little bit of work with the things we've suggested, we might find our way out. Because I think if we could come up with it might cost us a quarter of the cost every 5 or so years, I think people would probably stomach that, and we would just have to plan accordingly. So it's not even so much this one-off cost, it's the fact we're saddling the village.
It's an ongoing.
With this ongoing commitment, which I think is fair to the residents.
No, certainly not. It is disproportionate.
Yeah, and you know, the whole point of paying your council tax is, you know, if you think of that pond in Beedon, just as you hit the A34, they probably spent £250,000 on it, and until they cleared the bushes, you know, I parked there once and wondered where these duck noises were coming from.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was a pond there. It's just at the bottom of the slip road as you come up from Beedon and rejoin the A34. It's on the left-hand side. I said you could probably drive past it and not even know it's there. And they were in there for months. And I can't believe Beedon were paying for it.
But interesting to know why was that done? What was who initiated that?
You know, you're sort of thinking, well, where's the flood risk there? You know, in terms of how there's no flood risk to houses, because of course Beedon's on a hill half a mile higher than the pond. There's nothing there apart from the farmers' fields, and perhaps some runoff from the A34. Yeah, so it just this whole just doesn't seem right to me. So I think we've got to get some more information as fast as we can. The contract, has the contractor given us any indication of an ideal time of year, or in terms of could we go back and ask what if we take all the reeds out? Any kind of mitigation in terms of, well, that would reduce it by X, Y, or Z.
You can't just pull the reeds out, they'll regrow. They need to be dug out. Because of drying, ideally, it should have been done at the height of summer.
Yep.
So obviously digging now isn't ideal because we are potentially coming into the rainy season, although October is predicted to be an Indian summer. So October could be a good month to dry out.
I would struggle to think we're going to have all this resolved by October.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So and then we're going to go into proper winter.
I mean, I wonder, Nick, if you've got any steer as to whether we kind of cross our fingers and go, can we do everything we can from a riparian rights point of view in terms of making sure all the channels are cleared, and see if we can get through this winter with a view that maybe next July we kind of treat that as our project go date.
Problem we've got is we've increased the precept, didn't we, this year for flood alleviation?
Yes. Yeah, but sorry, Nick. What do you?
No. I think whatever we need to do, we need to mitigate the risk as best we can. One doesn't know what the winter holds, of course. But Fen tells me that West Berkshire Council have got it on their agenda to clear the drains and blast them through. Now it'll mean blasting it through into the pond. But at least if we can do what we can to alleviate the maximum potential of risk, and then do the pond in the summer of next year. But I'm with you. I'm only new to the role, but I can't see us getting a resolve to this before the end of 2020. And if we restricted to, well, I know it's an outdoor activity, so maybe we could have more than 6 working on the pond, but even galvanizing the local village now to come and do some work could be a challenge. So I think we've got to probably have a strategy that says, let's do what we need to do as best we can to ensure that we've got the best flow of water we can achieve without clearing the pond. And that's
I think that sounds really.
I'll talk to Pangbourne Flood Forum about that and see what we can do.
And I wonder whether it's worth a conversation with the beeswax folk. You know, even if we're both asking them potentially for contributions, or equally we're saying, look, if we can get the run from the pond perhaps running a little faster, because I think the guy from the council got his maths wrong. I really do. It's going to end up in Dyson's field, but of course that bottom bit of the field won't grow anything anyway. You know, could they for a year, you know, dig a slightly bigger hole the length of the field or something, so that if we did have to run the water through a little bit quicker, it could sit there as a holding lake.
In a holding lake. And actually East Ilsley by the Sea is quite attractive.
Yeah, you see, we start doing this, we'll be opening ice cream stalls and fishing.
We got Tommy for that.
We need to probably get Will Cunnan to just have a look at his.
Yeah, I think his is a bit of a mess.
And then we need to persuade Ian Wilson to clear his bit. I understand that beeswax have been very diligent and actually
they've been really good.
And they've been very good. So we just need to persuade Ian, which I can do, and Will to maybe take their responsibilities and clear.
And you know, and I think you're right, Nick. If we're promised a half decent October, I think we need to be writing or getting agreement in that, you know, that work is done by the end of October, and then perhaps a conversation with the Dyson folk to see, you know, would you put in a temporary holding lake in the bottom of that field for a year, or something where they're not, obviously clearly where they're not growing crops, but you know, the water's going that way, they know it's going that way. You know, they seem quite amenable, so it wouldn't seem to be the silliest conversation. And then we can then plan for actually getting this action next July and try all the different things we've got to try to see if we can minimize the liabilities of the village. Does that sound like a plan, everyone?
I think it's a twofold approach. Find new sources of funding, which Fen and I'll do, and then have our mitigating strategy in the event of no work on the pond this winter.
Yeah, Fen, I think we might need to adjust the risk register on this and probably crank it up a few notches.
Okay, we're coming to that anyway.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, you know, this might need to now become a standing item in terms of if we know we're not actually going to do the job, that we are just clear on our minutes and our agenda, what the mitigation is, what's been done, what's been discussed, so that if anyone ever does go, well, why didn't you do it? We've gone, here was our plan, here's our mitigation, we've done this, we've done this, we've done this, we've taken advice.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we then get to next July and hopefully we can get it done. Everyone okay with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. That's terrific. Thank you. Where are we? Item 9, to discuss the proposal for the land purchase from 11A to the proportion of the rec to enlarge the garden space. This is the, I'm right, Fen, in thinking this is the intractable problem that relates back to when the rec was originally given to the village?
Yeah, so this is the very old covenants that are on there about selling it off.
Yes.
Do you want to let Tommy take the floor so he can explain in more detail?
Of course, because if you have got an update, this seems like a story I've been listening to for a very long time and we haven't got an answer.
Yeah, I mean, as Nella just said, I don't know. Off you can. Sorry, my daughter. So yeah, there are restrictions in terms of if and how the land or any part of it can be sold off, and we have sent off the sort of various documents, the transfer documents to a solicitor to look at, and she basically said, I mean, the best, or what she would advise for us to do, is to contact, was it Biosciences, the original vendor, and essentially ask them to for I can't remember what the
Is it
name
dispensation or something?
A deed of variation or
Yeah.
whatever, which would essentially remove those covenants. I mean, it sort of seems, you know, those restrictions were put in place because, you know, they didn't want, I guess, the parish council to sell it off to developers and, you know, whatever else. It's a big piece of land. But, you know, I mean, our sort of point of view is that, you know, the land in question, A, it's very small. B, it's currently not being used for anything. I mean, it's a wedge between our garden and the recreational ground. And C, you know, if we bought it from the parish council, you know, that money would go back to the community. So it comes back to the, you know, why were these covenants put in place? It was basically to protect, you know, this land given to the community. The only exception is to build a community hall, because that would benefit the community. So, you know, we don't, you know, we're not developers. We're not talking about, you know, sort of wanting.
It would be a very small community hall.
So what we've done is drafted a letter to the Biosciences, which I've sent on to yourselves.
Yes.
For you to look at, for any comments, questions, and to find out what the parish council's views are on you know, just on the principle of us, you know, sort of on the idea of us buying the land. If, you know, everyone is in favour, you know, I did suggest that, you know, maybe some sort of a note or a further communication might be included from the parish council. You know, at the moment we're talking about costs for ponds, you know, the recreational ground, the play equipment itself. I mean, you know, hopefully buying that piece of land wouldn't be astronomical, because then we couldn't buy it anyway. But hopefully, you know, it all helps. So that's really where we're at. We haven't done anything because, like I said, we wanted to let everyone know what we consider or what we've been advised would be the next best step. So that, yeah, that's literally where we're at.
So if I can pick this up, I think to the best of my knowledge, Tommy, I've discussed this twice, if not 3 times, and there was never an issue about whether or not, you know, we thought it was or wasn't the right thing, you know, to potentially sell it. It always came back to us being fearful of being the wrong side of a covenant that would have bigger implications. So that's always been the thing that's always terrified us, in terms of, you know, it may look like it's a tiny bit of land and would be insignificant until you find out that, you know, someone comes back and takes the wreck off you and bolts the gates or something, or gives you a bill for £200,000.
And I do recall the conversation that we've had on that. I just, you know, obviously some time has gone by, so I just wanted to double check that the consensus hasn't changed. That's all.
No, I think I think that, you know, I think we did discuss this last time, and I think the council kind of thinks it's the covenant that ties our hands, not anything else. And if we can find a way through the legalities of that we can be confident we're not creating a liability, then I think, you know, I can't imagine there'd be a huge amount of problem in providing we can agree market value for the land that we can go forward. So that's the objection I've only ever heard. It's never been whether it's the right thing to sell it to you or not. It's always been this: what are the consequences of doing it?
I mean, we are, if we are in agreement, therefore, we will sort of make that next move, and we wouldn't expect the the parish council to try and have these covenants removed. I think we propose this, then we'll get the ball rolling, and if you're still happy for us to do so, then it's something we want to try. It might come to nothing. I don't even know who to address the biosciences.
Yeah, because it's all changed since they moved, because it was to do with the folks in Compton. Of course, they've gone to Purbright, and they probably don't even have the record of the thing, so you're always faced with challenges like that. Does anybody else have any points they wish to make, or questions, or any strong objections, or potentially do we think this sounds like a good way out of this conundrum?
I just noticed when I did my annual walk around the village, and part of that is checking the playground, and Tommy, I think the wedge is kind of behind our fence, and then it's wasteland before your garden fence, isn't it? Is it that sort of bit that runs down the side?
It's between, as you walk down towards the recreation ground and then into the recreation ground.
Yeah.
Well, you got that sort of chicken mesh fence coming down from the gate. So, that the sort of parish council border of it. And then, it's that shrubland that sort of narrows down, the further you go down to towards the recreational ground, or into the recreational ground.
Yeah, it doesn't impede in any way on anything we've already marked out, so we wouldn't be losing anything that we're using. And it is dead land, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
So I suppose the query is can the original deed and covenant be amended,
be varied?
and can we do that legally? Well, can you do that legally and successfully? And will that have any lasting impacts on our length of agreement that we've got this land for parish use? So that's what we would need to.
Is there a time scale attached to that?
Is it 900 years or something?
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a while to go.
We've got a while, but
although it feels like we've had a good 100 years at this.
Yeah, but those are the kind of things that I think, from our legal point of view, we would need to have very clear, and that like an addendum is done to the deeds that we've currently got our hand, or in our possession.
Yeah, and I think even if we ended up with a deed of variation, we might have to get it checked by West Berkshire solicitors or someone like that, because either that or we'd have to have a covenant from you that said, should anything go wrong, and I'm sure you wouldn't particularly want to do that either, but you need to take your advice from your solicitor in terms of how and why and how we construct this, and because I get the impression that the council are quite happy to do this, Tommy. We just need to have that absolute concrete assurance that we're not creating a problem.
No, I mean, the way I envisage this is to sort out the legal side of things first, and then look at any transactions. Because we're in the same boat as you. We don't want to cause any problems, for our neighbours or for ourselves indeed. So. Before doing anything else, it would be, this part of it of contacting the biosciences people, and we would be offering to cover, to even have our solicitors do the deed of variation, or if they want to use their solicitors, look at those costs as well. But no, we wouldn't expect anyone to sort of take this any further until the T's are crossed and the I's dotted. So yeah, I mean that's absolutely the order of things in our view.
Okay, is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah.
I did have a message from Brendan to say he is happy with this.
Fabulous. Okay, I think we might be getting some resolution. So that would be excellent. We didn't manage it in the previous millennia.
Does the parish council want to sort of include any supporting communications to accompany our letter to
I think if Fen drafts a letter once you've got the contact that says, you know, the parish council are in principle, you know, happy to undertake this, but just, you know, we equally will need some letter that says something like, providing it doesn't have any, you know, major impact on the existing. You know, because then, yeah, I see no reason why we can't jointly send something in. Just again, providing it just details that we don't want any adverse reaction on.
No, the idea would be, you know, that it would be clear from the beginning that this is, you know, not just sort of a one-sided initiative.
Yes, no, I agree. I think one of the things the parish council probably doesn't do enough is support local residents in matters where they're trying to resolve something with third parties, be it utilities or stuff like this, because I think sometimes getting a little bit of support, you know, the parish council doesn't have a great deal of power, influence or clout, but it is at least a legal entity as a thing. So,
but I mean, obviously, in this instance, you are very much involved.
Yes, no, we absolutely are. So again, Fen, I don't have an objection per se if we write a letter supporting the idea in principle, providing it doesn't impact on the overall recreation ground and the terms and conditions of the deed we've currently got. And that's it in a nutshell, I think, Tommy. So let's see if we can make this work.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've been at this a while.
I'm gonna head off to sort out bedtime, if you don't mind.
Yes, best of luck with it.
Thanks, Tommy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
item 10, to review the risk register and plan to resolve issues found with ratification of the 2021 document. Fen, over to you.
Yep, so I found 15 items that are potentially risks in the village. Common field paddock, we've got 3 slats broken and 1 is missing. However, the horse people have put up some sort of binding tape so the horse can't get out. So I don't know whether we want to consider repairing the wood or just leave it as it is. There are, on that common field, I've been on there twice last week, there are some very large holes that are not from rabbits.
Can we fill them with stuff from the pond?
Probably, but they do need to be filled in because people are, you know, people do walk on there, as do the horses, and the horse owners have put some tape around some of the more larger ones, but perhaps that might be a peat job with some
I think so.
stuff.
Because we've now got a mechanism for dealing with that in the short term. So, yeah.
The footpath running up to Sunrise Hill, there is a big hole in the middle. Again, it's not a rabbit hole, it's just a big dip, which if people walk down there in twilight are going to miss, and it's slap bang in the middle. I think Pete needs to fill that in.
Let's get that done as well.
Okay, we have got a lot of overgrowth of nettles, so someone needs to go out with the brush cutter. Massively on the higher section of the footpath at Sunrise. Actually, I couldn't go from the first section to the second section in shorts and a t-shirt because I was going to be stung. And obviously with schools back, families are using that footpath network now.
Okay. Can one of our trained, skilled volunteers risk their life in a nice risk-assessed way and go deal with that?
Yeah, at some point.
Okay. Talking of strimming, You know the footpath that pops out at the top of Church Hill that runs along the back of Churchside, and there's like a kissing gate that takes you down Ian Wilson's field.
Yeah.
Lane. That kissing gate is completely overgrown with nettles. You can't get through it without being stung.
Oh, can we get Pete to do it?
Is Pete trained?
Well, no, Pete knows how to use it, so I wouldn't worry about that. Let's do a Pete list.
Yeah.
And
because then we know it'll get done.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Pete
Tracy.
always used to do the paths down Sunrise.
Okay.
Yeah.
He always did it.
Do a Pete list. He knows how to use the strimmer.
Yeah.
We just need to, whether we agree that we give him a key, he's not gonna do anything wrong with the key. But I would say do a Pete list and give him the list, and it'll be done in a week.
Yeah.
All those things on that list then.
You know the sort of well house hut by the pond?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the concrete pillars there are degrading quite significantly.
Right.
It's not immediate, they're not going to topple over, but
Yes.
you can now see on all of them the metal rods that run through the middle of the concrete posts.
Okay. Are they listed or anything?
No, not that I
Okay.
found on the listed buildings websites. They're not on
Okay,
there. But
cool.
my worry is if kids climb on that,
Yeah.
that they fall. So that's something, but I don't think that's this year.
Okay.
The main notice board by the bus shelter, it needs a
Yes.
clean and a restain. We've got
Okay.
to try and preserve that, so we haven't got to buy a new one.
Yep.
Bus shelter, drain pipes
Yes.
are missing. There is a metal drain pipe on the floor behind it.
Yeah, that used to be on the front.
Right, but that's just lying on the floor at the back.
Okay.
There's a missing roof tile, which will cause a leak, and some of the wooden panels are broken and it needs a good scrub. So that might be a
Okay.
working party community group.
Yeah, I'm a bit better at roofing than I was a month ago.
Yeah, totally.
You might have noticed this, but the dog poop bin opposite the school, next to Tommy's house, is on a post, but the post isn't in the ground. And
Excellent.
also the gate has broken away from the brickwork in the pillar. The brick
Again.
pillar.
Oh.
So I have asked Chris, do you remember Chris who did our maintenance at the playground,
Yes.
to do a quote for me to fix those two items?
Excellent.
Suggestion from some mums in the village.
Yes.
Could we possibly add spring close hinges to both gates in the playground to stop dogs running in?
Yes.
They are available for £3 from Screwfix.
Yep.
Or we could purchase please close the gate signs, which cost
Or we could do both.
£6 and £12 each. Because it says no dogs in teeny tiny lettering.
Can we not get the no dogs fine of up to £1,000 from West Berkshire Council signs?
Yes.
Well, it's not West Berkshire Council owned land, is it?
Yeah, but maybe we just
We could
order a
have
sign that
£1,000
says-
to us. That would be nice.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, but the
The
money
pond.
would go to us.
Then go towards the pond fund.
Yeah, exactly. As of last week, the Harris fencing from the playground was still in the wreck. Both myself and Brendan ended up calling Graham from Red Lynch on the same day, and he was absolutely flabbergasted because although we're not paying for it, they are, and it should have been removed in August. So he's livid. So hopefully that's going to be gone. Notice board outside the school is the cork boards have completely disintegrated.
Okay, let's get that done.
Surround is fine, but they can't physically put anything on it.
Okay.
Last one from me. One goalpost at the rec doesn't have a net, so the kids can't play a game of football. There's only one net, and so I have a suggestion from some parents that perhaps we can ask Phipps at school to buy us one, who's sitting on a nice pot of money. I've got a governor meeting tomorrow, and I've added it to AOB. So I'm hoping the governors will approve that, and it'll go to Phipps meeting, and they'll buy us a new net.
If not, get Berkshire active. They've got lots of cash.
Okay. So I think the only thing I'm waiting on is the quote from Chris to fix the dog poop bin and the brick pillar and gate, and then the rest of the things we can do ourselves.
Oh, while we're potentially building new houses on Penn Meadow, could you get Lockinge to fix the fence?
Well, I've sent them the pictures and a letter.
No fixie fence, no houses.
Yeah, I've not had a single response from anything, and I've followed it up with a call as well, and no one's
Oh,
replied.
marvellous. Well, perhaps if you talk to, what's his name, Mr. Armstrong, he may be able to chivvy them along.
I even said to them that, you know, babies are having their arms and legs stung as they walk, as they get pushed down in their buggies.
But the actual fence is broken. So as I said, the next one is, if they don't do it, we will do it. We will send them a bill.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. So have you all looked at the new style risk assessment I've done, where I've
Yes.
done a matrix?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fab.
Okay.
Super.
Did you want to increase the figures for the pond?
I think I do. Because I think we might have to take the risk up until we've done the mitigation.
So where are we?
So
at
we
the
can take it back down once we've done the clearing the
So at the moment,
channels and
pond
what item number is it, Fen?
93 on
Sorry.
the risk assessment.
God,
It's
God, mine's
currently,
just like running a small state.
no, it's currently risk rate 32. So we've got a severity of very likely and
Yeah.
a likelihood of 4, which is lost time injury. I haven't gone as far as major injury, single death or multiple death. You could change the likelihood to certain because we know it's going to rain.
Yeah.
Which would take us up, if we kept it at lost time injury, it would take us up to 40 on the risk rate.
I just think I really don't mind just providing it is changed from where it is now to increase, which shows that we've taken note that, you know, we need to do some mitigating action and include the mitigating action as an action list that's either done or not done.
Yeah, 40 would bring it into high priority. Action required urgently to control risks and is unacceptable.
Right, let's do that. Let's do that then.
Are you all happy that that goes up to 40 risk rate? Right, what I'll have to do, if you're all happy with this, it needs signing by all of you. Obviously, that's quite difficult at the moment, but I will revise item 93. And then when I'm in the next village, I'll see if I can find you for a signature, because this has to go to our insurance company, you see.
Okay, cool.
Excellent. Okay.
So that will be around at some point, but our insurance is due the next, we're in obviously a 3-year cycle. We've done 1 year.
Okay, so we've still got a while to go.
We've still got 2 years, and that starts on the 1st of October.
Brilliant.
So I have sent them the new asset register and the risk assessment. So if you're okay with that, I'm happy to make a peat list.
Yeah, please.
And I'll share the quote with you from Chris and engage him to fix those pillars and gates.
That would be great.
Okay.
Item 12 or
11.
Oh, sorry, Nick's got something.
Mute.
There we go.
Can I bow out and say good night?
Oh, of course, Nick. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm not needed for anything else, I don't think. So,
thank you very much.
And speak again. Pleasure. Good night.
Thank you, Nick.
Night. Good night.
Sorry, for the minutes, can I just say, you're all happy with the risk assessment, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really good. Thank you, Fen.
Brilliant. Okay, 11.
Okay, so
Asset register. So I have revised the format to include location and purchase date and value. It was quite difficult for me coming in and being able to find all of these items. So I thought it'd be best to state where things are. And I've also put them into sort of headings. We've gone up to 82,869 based on the new playground equipment and the new laptop. If we do buy any more before March from the double match funding day, we'll obviously need to edit this.
Yeah.
But if you're happy with it, and I haven't missed anything or forgotten anything, I didn't list all the tiny things in the container, because really you should only have things on here that are £100 or more. But certainly what we have spent adds up to just under 1,000. So I wanted to make sure it was registered on there in case that container got broken into.
Yeah, and I noticed, we've got the salt spreader in there. Should we be thinking about salt at some point as well?
It's not come yet.
Oh, okay.
This company's been so unlucky. The chap got COVID.
Oh, okay.
That has recovered, and then obviously it takes 2 people to build, so they couldn't do it socially distanced, and then they had a fire. So we'll get it by Christmas.
By summer next year.
Yeah. So if you're happy with this, I will obviously share amendments as and when more equipment arrives, but we kind of need to ratify this, that you're okay today, and Andrew, I'll bring it round at some point to sign.
Brilliant, thank you. Everyone happy with that?
Yeah, perfect.
Fabulous, thank you. Item 12, to consider litter picking kits. It's difficult to say.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I just thought it would be a good idea to have a litter picking kit in the container, so we can just do it ad hoc. Because especially now, obviously coming up to the winter, rather than bothering West Berks for all the equipment, having to go in, pick it up, blah, blah, blah. We just have our own.
Okay. And
just get on with it.
Do we know how much it's going to cost?
Yeah, so it's on your agenda. The triggers with the grip handles are £5 each.
Yep.
High-vis vests, we've already got 20 in the container.
Yep.
Black bin bags, we can purchase a stock from a shop for a couple of quid. Disposable gloves for COVID safety. A box of 100 are coming in at £7.50. And Tracy would like some of those rings that you hold the bags in so that they're open. That's £7.99 each.
Yeah, brilliant.
So are you happy with 5 litter pickers?
What do you think, Tracy?
Yeah, that would be fine, because there's probably only about 4 or 5 of us at any one time doing it anyway. Okay. So no, that'd be fine. So
if I got 5 pickers, 5 hoops, a couple of rolls of black bin bags, and then a box of 100 gloves.
Yeah. Do we need to get any face masks?
No, because they'll be outside.
Okay. Yeah, again, and just make sure we risk assess it.
Do we need goggles, safety goggles?
Yeah. They're not in the kit what West Berkshire give you.
Okay, no, ignore that then. Right, you happy if I make the purchase? Can I stick it on the credit card?
Yeah. And if necessary, pull it out of reserves.
Might be a silly question, but we don't actually need people to have training, do we, to be picking up litter on the side of the road?
Just your high vis.
I think we possibly might need some sort of protocol thing that they can agree to if we send them an email or something. Maybe.
We might, if I did a risk assessment and then we got those that wanted to take part sign a disclaimer.
Yeah.
Well, it's gone mad, right? Somebody.
No, it has, or respond to you saying
I guess it's gone mad.
Yeah.
HSE is just nuts.
Yeah, it's not doing the job it should, and it's overdoing stuff it shouldn't. Excellent. Okay, let's crack on.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Tracy.
That's all right.
Fen, over to you.
So finances, you've got the report there for August. Obviously a high spend month for us with all the playground kit, planning consultancy, and courtesy lights. September will be not as big, but obviously the staffing committee have confirmed that I can have an increase in my spinal column point on my pay award, so thank you. I have just for your information, currently as of today our balance in our bank account was 27,689. So it's come down slightly, but we have got our new grant from West Berks for the playground.
Yeah.
So I've got another £560, and if you're happy, I can move that to earmark reserve for the playground.
Yep.
And that was a member's bid from Caroline.
Brilliant.
We also
could we write a letter saying thank you?
Yeah. Letter. We also got someone else very kindly in East Ilsley did a donation for us at Greenham Common. So we got another £25 transferred to our account. So I'll put that in the playground as well. So that that money is topping up quite nicely. Obviously, Purbright, Caroline's already mentioned. We've got nothing left, nothing about that. If you want to respond to the Chiltern Neighbourhood Development Plan, I've sent you the link.
Okay.
That's there if you want to do it. I'm getting a lot of emails about the amount of dog poop in Millennium Green. Okay. Not the recreation ground.
Yeah.
Green. We don't own that, do we? That's not our land.
No, the Millennium Green Trust own it, and they have a board of trustees. So we should be referring people's queries to that. But equally, I think officially we should be saying they have a problem.
Yeah. Shall I write a letter to the trust and just say we've had a lot of complaints?
Yeah. Are we still cutting their grass?
Yeah.
I think, we are more than doing some good stuff there. And I know it's a huge village asset, but, perhaps they might want to come and talk to us at some point, because they didn't come and talk to us at the annual general meeting, did they?
No.
So
okay. I have reran the Poop Fairy campaign on all our social media channels, because I try to do that every now and then. Awareness gets increased.
Yeah.
War Memorial update. Very exciting. Very exciting.
Well done.
So obviously, Movie Week News picked up on it last week, which is great. Off the back of that, ITV Meridian have now picked it up. We are currently looking at a restoration and reinstallation figure of approximately £1,600.
Right.
I am currently applying for a grant for that money. We have been pre-approved based on the need.
Yeah.
We haven't been given the money yet. It's based on this document I write.
Okay.
So I'm halfway there, but I have had to get 2 quotes. So I've got a stonemason friend of mine that I work with for the church, who has come in at just slightly cheaper.
And where's the grant coming from, Fen?
War Memorials Trust.
Brilliant.
Yep. So I've got to just finish off filling in the paperwork. The faculty has gone into the Diocese of Oxford. The ITV Meridian have sent me a lovely message of support of how they want to focus on churches in rural communities as a pull for the diocese to say, right, let's get this thing installed, because I'm going to be stuck if they say no. I've got nowhere to put it.
Yeah.
So that's all in hand. And my last thing is website. Our new website is built and looks all right. There's a few tweaks I need to do for accessibility. It's not quite live yet because we're just doing the domain name transfer from Joe Cox to Teak, and I completed the form for the government today. We had to pay Joe's £80 annual subscription, but Teak have said they will take £80 off our bill to compensate us for that. You have all got new email addresses, but I have not yet got the instructions of how to access them. So don't worry, you'll get those soon. And the deadline is the 23rd of September, which I'm confident we'll meet, but I'll give you a full update on email with all the instructions nearer the time. But our villagers shouldn't see any difference. They'll just see a nicer designed website.
Brilliant. Fabulous. Thanks, Fen. Great work. Item 14, further questions or comments from the public. We haven't got any. Fen, just a quick query. We didn't put AOB down. Do we always put AOB down or not? Or
no, we're not allowed AOB. Parish councils in legislation, we should never have AOB.
Okay, fair enough. And so the only thing that I did just want to briefly off the record then say is about the virtual meeting thing, because I saw your note from Balk and Nalk and MHCLG, you know, I see no point taking risks with either infecting the school or, you know, parish councillors or villagers, because I think, well, I get the impression, or it's my impression, this seems to be working quite well. I don't know if everybody else agrees. So
I think it does. I think, yeah, I think it's good.
I like it.
And you know, I'd even make.
I'm in Leeds at the moment, so it's really helpful.
Oh, well, there we go. I could tell by the beach behind you. Yeah. You know, I genuinely think this is something the MHCLG should consider, giving parish councils the option long term of, you know, either doing it virtually or doing it both. So even if we do end up back in the school on our own, you know, that you can run it virtually as well to try and include people who can't be there, or as Mike is are out of town. You know, I think it would be good to see if we can get that rolling rather than them just going back to same old, same old.
Yeah, and also obviously we're saving money on hall hire.
Yeah, we should probably.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to raise was I had loads of complaints about the guys who live next to Brian emptying their jacuzzi into the highway.
Yeah, we've sorted that.
Well,
Brian gave me all the photographs, which then I forwarded to Fen, and Fen's going to have a chat with the two.
So I know these guys, and I'm happy to talk to them that way. But
it's illegal what they're doing.
It's not illegal. It isn't. I've checked.
Really? Well, you can empty a jacuzzi into the road.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because it's what you do is I've spoken to 2 hot tub specialists in Berkshire.
Are we getting one?
Wow. So it depends on their the chemical method they're using for cleaning. If they're using chlorine or bromine, then they are perfectly within their rights to attach a hose to the spigot at the bottom of the spa and run it into their garden. Or down a hill into a drain on a road. There is no legislation that says they can't. If they've got a salt system, they are not allowed to put it in the garden because it kills plants and insects. But that only needs to be cleaned out once a year. I'm guessing, because this has happened a couple of times, they haven't got a salt system. So it'll be chlorine or bromine. And it's such small quantities that it doesn't affect the watercourse. There is nothing illegal about what they're doing. But what they should be doing is really putting it in their garden, not out the road.
Or they do what I do, open a manhole cover in my back garden and put it down the drain, which is what they should be doing.
Yeah. But legally, it's you can, as long as it goes down a main drain, which it will do down the road.
So were they to do it in the winter, form a patch of ice, I presume they're liable.
I don't know. We would be able to trace where the ice slip has come from, so probably yes.
Yeah.
That case, it would be better if they had the salt system, because that wouldn't freeze.
Well, yeah, but I don't think.
Yes.
So, sorry,
anyway,
I have to do some investigation on that before I could respond to them.
And as this was all off the record, or not off the record, but post-event, we'll have to pick it up offline. The meeting's already closed, probably, isn't it? Because
I've got one thing I could start, if you've just got a second to indulge me.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
All right, I noticed on the that we're paying people 30 quid a year or thereabouts for this keeping the lights on in the village type thing. Now I've adopted this system at my house. So if you assume that, and bear with me for this, it's just a very quick business case. Let's assume they're using a 40-watt bulb on those properties. The cost of electricity in today's rate to run that for 8 hours a night, if you average that out over a full year, you know, sometimes it's a lot longer, sometimes it's shorter, but for 8 hours, it costs about £17.50 at 15p a kilowatt to run that light system. If we bought them, because I've got LED bulbs that have a dusk till dawn sensor actually on the bulb itself, so it's not a new lamp system or anything. Screw it in or plug it in and it works, and you just leave it on then, and it comes on at night time and it goes off at dawn, so it's all automatic. they run at 6 watts. They cost £4 each to buy. It only costs £2.60 a year to run one of those. So you
Okay.
reduce the running cost by 15 quid for spending a £4 on light bulb. So we could save ourselves 50% of whatever we spend across the village. I don't know what it is. It's about 300 quid or something like that, is it?
Yeah, about 289 I think I've paid this year.
We could reduce that every year by half, even if
I think anything that takes electricity costs down, because it does, we should consider doing, because whether or not we, pass the saving on or not, we should
per building, you're going from 116 kilowatts a year down to 17.
Yeah.
So the stands. I'll write that up and send it across, and then we can.
Thank you, Mike. That sounds like a really sensible thing, and of course, it gets us away from relying on timers that are somewhat. The problem actually might be the timers are still quite old. And they're
Bob's
cutting
timers.
the power on and off. Yeah, Bob's timers, and with the George Stevenson stamp on.
Sorry, the other.
Getting inclement weather, you see, and the rain clouds come in, it comes on. So it's not just tied to the fact it's 7 o'clock every evening or whatever.
Mike, I don't know if you heard, but it was on Jeremy Vine, I don't know, Monday, Friday, last week, about Swindon were complaining to the council because they've upgraded all their lights to LEDs, and they said they're now brighter than the sun.
Yeah.
So night time is now brighter than daytime in Swindon.
Yeah, we need to make sure we.
Yeah, not a little bulb. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, because we have that with the one they put by the pond. That's like a security gate floodlight.
Mm.
And the council didn't ask us, and all of a sudden, it's like being at a football ground.
I was going to say, is that not for the ducks to play football at night?
I think that's what happens. I think that and the herons in goal. Yeah.
Well, we can get the right light temperature and that kind of stuff for these things, but it's definitely a much better system. That doesn't.
No, I agree. That's very sensible. Thanks, Mike, for that. Have we got anything else? Or...
No, all good.
Yeah. Fen, are we okay?
Yes, I'm exhausted, but yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, me too. So we've covered everything off, yeah?
Yes, thank you very much.
Fabulous. Thank you, guys. I thought that was really good. I mean, there's some really meaty stuff in there. So I think we've got lots of work on our hands. So, yeah, if you come across any multimillionaires who want to dig the pond out, feel free to send them our way.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
All righty. See you later.
Thanks, Fen.
Bye for now. Bye.